A Bookish Moment will be starting shortly. To learn more about all things bookish, visit www.thebookishhour.com. Subscribe to our channel for all things bookish.
And we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our very first A Bookish Moment. Here today, we are joined with the wonderful Leah Dobrinska, celebrating the release of her new novel, Death Checked Out. We are so excited to have Leah here and to have a moment with her. I am one of your co-hosts, Sarah Burr.
And I am the other co-host who's just so excited about spending some time with Leah. I am JC Kenny. So, hey, let's get bookish.
Let's get bookish. For those of you who are just joining us or maybe haven't seen one of our Bookish Hour shows before, make sure that you are logged into YouTube so that you can participate live with us here. We'd love to take questions from the audience, and make sure that any questions that you have for Leah, you just need to be logged into your YouTube account, as well as you want to make sure that you're logged in for the giveaway that we have today. Leah has generously offered a copy of Death Checked Out, and you're not here from me. We want to hear from Leah. So Leah, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our viewers?
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Sarah and Jim. I am a huge fan of the Bookish Hour, so I am thrilled to be here today. Like Sarah said, I am Leah Dobrinska. I am a small town romance and cozy mystery author, and my debut cozy mystery just published 1 week ago. So it's officially been out in the world for 1 week. It's called Death Checked Out. And this book, I've been telling everyone, is my love letter to libraries and librarians. The Amateur Sleuth is a librarian. So it's my love letter to libraries, Nancy Drew, and the Wisconsin Northwoods. It's set in a small lakeside town, and it's just a ton of fun. So I'm so excited that it is finally out in the world, and I can't wait to answer questions and chat about this book today.
Awesome. Yes. So any questions that you have for Leah, please feel free to put them in the chat. I have so many questions. I was honored to read an advanced copy of this book, and just the fact, like, the whole love letter aspect is, it like bleeds from the page. It's so wonderful, and cozy mystery fans would certainly love this book. I can't recommend it enough. Leah, my first question for you, actually, I have so many questions, I can't even begin. But for your the librarian connection, where does that love come from?
Okay, so I'm not a librarian, obviously, but I have always loved librarians. I think going back to some of my earliest memories in grade school, my grade school librarian, Mrs. Van Hammond, was wonderful. I remember her reading The Very Hungry Caterpillar to us. I remember her bringing in mystery readers every Friday, and I just always felt so at home in libraries and surrounded by books. So when I was inspired to write a cozy mystery, I couldn't think of a better person to serve as the amateur sleuth. As an adult, I visit the library probably bare minimum 3 times a week. I have young kids who are voracious readers, so we go to our library frequently and have just made friends with the librarians who are so helpful and have just introduced us to so many amazing series and books for all different ages, for me, for my kids. And I just think there's something so cool about librarians, because they're just so knowledgeable and they're so kind and they're great at pairing people with the information that they need. So I thought that it made a really kind of intuitive amateur sleuth to have her be a librarian. She loves to know things. Her name is Greta Plank. So Greta loves to know things. She's very curious, as most amateur sleuths are. But with her librarian background, what she doesn't know, I think she knows how to find out. So that serves her very well over the course of the story.
And where do readers, when they're introduced to Greta, at what point in her life is she at? What kind of, I guess, brings her into the mystery?
Yeah, so Greta is not quite 30 years old. She has just moved to the small town of Larkspur, Wisconsin. It's a lakeside town in northern Wisconsin. She's had some struggles in her past. Her sister died about a decade prior. She sort of moved away from her hometown in the aftermath of that. She went to college, got settled with a new job in a different city. And some stuff sort of happened there that made her want to get out of Dodge. So she settles in Larkspur. She's been there for about 4 months when our story gets started. And during that time, she had taken the role as director of Larkspur Community Library. So she's early in her tenure, but she's already made a lot of good friends, including friendship with her 2 co-librarians, Josie and Iris. So it's kind of a trio of avenging librarians in this book, which was really fun to play with, kind of the interplay between Greta and her librarian pals.
Now, is the trio of friends that you have, is that also part of your love letter to Nancy Drew?
100%. Yes. That was driven both by Nancy Drew, her 2 best friends, George and Bess, are very much mirrored in Greta's best friends, Josie and Iris. So I don't know if that was just sort of like subconsciously done initially, that I was like, well, I have a librarian. She's an amateur sleuth. She needs friends. Like, she's got to have sidekicks to help her out. And it just made sense that they were working together. But even some of their personality traits sort of tracked with George and Bess, Nancy's best friends and sidekicks. So I had a lot of fun with that. And I just think I love in cozy mysteries when your amateur sleuth isn't a woman on an island. Like, she's got her crew, her posse that's helping her along. And I just think it adds a really fun dynamic to the story.
For sure.
And along that line, I understand there's another Nancy Drew connection that has something to do with the town's name of Larkspur.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit, please?
Yeah. So when I was trying to come up with the name of this town where I set my book, the actual town in Death Checked Out is based very much off of an area where my family visited growing up. So I was able to kind of bring in a lot of those sensory and real, like, deep memories from my childhood to try to make this setting as real and lifelike as possible. But I couldn't come up with a name, and I was struggling to like figure out what I wanted to call this place to really encapsulate like this cozy feel, and just kind of make it something memorable. There are so many good cozy mystery settings. It's hard to, I think for me, it was hard to feel like I was going to pick a name that would stand out and stand the test of time. But I happened to be looking at my bookshelf one day, as one does, and I have my Nancy Drew book collection there. And I stumbled upon the 10th book in the Nancy Drew series. I just happened to see it, and it's called Password to Larkspur Lane. And I was like, oh, Larkspur. I was like, I love that. Like, I love that name. Obviously, it's the name of Larkspur as a bird. But also I was like, it's just such a lovely name. Like, it sounds like a very happy place to be. It sounds like everything would be very calm and peaceful. And Larkspur, prior to page 20 in my book, is very much that way. It's very idyllic. That's one of the reasons Greta loves living there. She kind of felt like she put her tumultuous past behind her. And unfortunately, things change, and she kind of has to fight to regain that peace. But so the name of Larkspur is totally, it came from a Nancy Drew book. I have it here.
I never would have guessed that that Larkspur wasn't just like immediately born, because it just like the way that you write about it is just clearly, so it's not only vivid, but just like immersive, and like wraps you in like a nice warm blanket. So to know that you had, that writerly struggle of like, what do I call this place? It's like, oh, okay. It makes me feel better.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm so glad you felt that way about Larkspur. That was my hope. I try so hard to make settings in my books places that people wish were real and they want to visit. So I try to do that with Larkspur, especially jumping genres from my romances, which I wrote first, and they're all set in a small town called Mapleton. And probably 8 out of 10 comments that I get from people about those books are, I want to go to Mapleton. Like, I want to visit this place. I love this community. I love these like quirky little spots that you've infused these books with. So when I set out to write a mystery, I knew it wasn't going to be set in Mapleton. And that had sort of not become a crutch, but become something that I really relied on as an author to kind of dive back into a location that I knew readers enjoyed visiting. So it was a definite challenge for me to try to craft a town or a place like that for a cozy mystery setting, and just make sure that I was building it out enough to kind of tick all those boxes and make sure that people would want to not only stay for the duration of this book, but come back for books 2 and 3 in Larkspur.
That's really interesting.
Well, that's just so much fun, and I echo what Sarah says, that, the town, Larkspur, Wisconsin, that just sounds like you get a picture immediately, Midwestern, small town, nice folks, cozy setting. It's just brilliant. So, good on you.
Thank you.
One of the things I'm curious about is if you could just tell us a little bit, where the idea came from. You mentioned you used to, or you are still, a romance author.
Mm-hmm.
Where did the switch come about, or the move, I shouldn't say necessarily the switch, to, stepping into cozy mysteries?
That's a really good question. And I cannot pinpoint a day or time when I switched and was like, oh, I want to write cozy mysteries. But I've always been a mystery reader, going back to Nancy Drew. And throughout my life, I've loved reading in the genre of cozy mysteries. And I think somewhere in the back of my mind, I always thought, I would like to try my hand at that. Like, I would love to write a mystery, whether it be in homage to Nancy Drew or just to stretch my creative brain in that way. But I don't know that there was an active decision to like transition from romance to mystery. Interestingly, this was probably 3 years ago, and my family and I were visiting a small town in northern Wisconsin, just like a stone's throw away from the little community that I used to go to as a child. And ironically, my husband's family has a cabin very close to where we used to vacation as kids. So we were there visiting his family, and we were on a pontoon boat, just sort of puttering around their lake. And we came around a bend, and there was this little cove, and I saw up in the hills off to the side of this lake, this tiny log cabin. And I had a moment where I was like, whoa, that would be the setting for my mystery, like that. And I wasn't in the process of writing mysteries. I was totally in the romance lane, but I didn't look at that cabin and say like, oh, I'm going to write a romance and set it in a log cabin. It was, that's where I'm going to write a mystery. And so we came home after that weekend, and I think I must have been in between projects, because shortly thereafter I had like the inspiration scene that started me down the path to what became Death Checked Out. And I started writing my first mystery novel, and that was this, like multiple drafts prior to this, like very highly edited version became the final version of Death Checked Out. But yeah, so it just sort of started, I think, because of my history of being a mystery reader, and then also just wanting to sort of stretch my brain in a new way, and then having that actual like real life inspiration come into play with that setting kind of coalesced into a perfect storm for me.
I love those moments, and I've had them where it's like I look at something, it's like, ooh, that's a great place to kill somebody.
Yeah.
And so I'm interested, can you share for our viewers what the mystery is that Greta is focusing on, and why she decides that it's up to her to solve it?
Absolutely. So Greta, like I said, is relatively new to Larkspur. So she's been living there for about 4 months, and she has her own little log cabin on the lake. Her nearest neighbor is a very reclusive older gentleman. And initially he wants nothing to do with her, but she's sort of like broken him, like just worn him down with her positivity. That's like her very ever-present trait. She's a very positive person. She's very optimistic. And she doesn't take no from an answer from this guy. So she kind of strikes up a friendship with him. She offers to courier him library books, which really gets her on his good side. And she's starting to kind of try to pull him into the Larkspur fold. She wants him to be involved in the community. And she's thrilled when she visits him and he asks for the phone number of a widow in town. So Greta is thinking like, wow, all of my efforts are finally paying off. This is amazing. So the older gentleman and the widow, they make plans to get together, and Greta follows up because of course she's like, I need to know, this is my matchmaking like efforts on the table here, on the line. So she goes to her neighbor's house one day after work to kind of follow up, get all the details on this budding relationship. And she doesn't see her neighbor doesn't answer the door. She notices the door is left open, which is odd because he's not very welcoming of anybody in town. But she goes into his cabin and she ends up finding him dead behind his cabin on kind of like the base of the stairs leading to the lake. So she finds the body and she calls the police, as one does. She, of course, thinks that this is just some tragic accident. She has no design, like she doesn't think that this all could be foul play because this is Larkspur and it's a happy place. But she soon learns that what she thinks is an accident is something more sinister, and she kind of gets in the crosshairs of the detective in town who cites her as his top suspect. She's got fingerprints at the scene. She ends up kind of really entangled with this guy's life. And yeah, the detective thinks that she did it. So she, again, is a little worried about her reputation just based on experiences that she's had in the past. So she decides to go full-blown Nancy Drew and figure it out for herself, or at least try to find out who else could have authored this guy's death. And fortunately for her, she's got the help of her two librarian friends, and her mom is a lawyer, which comes in handy when you're being accused of murder. So yeah, she gets to work, and that's kind of what the entire story is about.
I think the role that Greta's mom plays is really cool because, at least in other cozy mysteries that I've read, you don't normally have the involvement of a lawyer unless like the main character is a lawyer. So I thought like her flavor that she brings was really engaging and a nice twist on a classic.
Thank you.
Now, Leah, I told you like that this time was going to fly by, and
yes,
it is flying by. We've got like 12 minutes left of our 30-minute moment. So I wanted to pause and give our viewers a chance. If you guys have any questions for Leah, please make sure to put them in the chat. But we do also want to queue up our giveaway for Death Checked Out. And Leah, if you'd like to share the magic word for our viewers.
Yes. So I can't wait to send this paperback copy to one of you. Thanks for being here today, everyone. The magic word is River Heights. So I guess it's 2 words, River Heights. For those of you who are not as much of Nancy Drew fans as I am, that is the location of the Nancy Drew books. So River Heights.
Excellent. So make sure logged in to YouTube, enter River Heights into the chat. We do have a question from Claudia. And Claudia would like to know if you are a rare book collector, and if not, what books would you like to add to your collection?
So I am not a rare book collector, not yet anyway. I did string that storyline kind of throughout the pages of Death Checked Out. I formerly worked for a rare book collector. I did some of the kind of content marketing for a rare book company. So I had kind of a bird's eye view into the rare book collecting world and was able to see a lot of rare books coming across my screen, at least virtually. So I don't know, I saw so many cool books. Keeping with the season, I think I would love to get a title, what is it called? Letters to Father Christmas. It's J.R.R. Tolkien, and it's his collection of letters that he wrote to his children. And there are some really, really beautiful editions that I saw in my time working for that rare book company. So that's one that comes to mind that is seasonally appropriate.
Was the rare book storyline from your time working there, Leo, or was it something that just like kind of fit into the world of Larkspur? Because that I was like, oh, that's like a very interesting hobby for somebody to have.
Yeah, so both and. I think because my main character was a librarian, I knew that she would have an interest in rare books, and it was something that she had in common with the person or the character that becomes the victim in the story. So it just sort of worked together seamlessly. But even some of the information, so the victim collects James Bond rare books, and that was that sort of collection is what the bookseller who I worked for had a pretty huge collection of James Bond titles. So I learned a lot about James Bond working in that field and was able to kind of put some of that in the book too.
Nice. I thought that was the choice of book. I was like, oh, that's really cool to read about.
Thanks.
So, one question that I'm curious about is you mentioned that Greta is new in town relatively. Can you talk about, without getting anything away, was it easy or harder for her as an outsider, kind of doing her investigation? Did being an outsider present any unique challenges for her or advantages for her?
Yeah, so I think Greta, as an outsider, is first of all worried about her reputation. She's worried about not even being in town for half a year, and now she's got potentially the scarlet letter of a murder accusation kind of hanging over her. So that's one of the reasons why she gets so involved, because she is very concerned about that. Fortunately for her, she has the unwavering support of her coworkers, one of whom played a pretty key role in getting her the job, kind of went to bat for her. That's the other thing. Greta is sort of walking a fine line. She's got some people on the library board who aren't as enthusiastic about some of the ways that she chooses to do things. So she wants to stay in the mayor's good graces so that she doesn't have to go up against these library board members who might like to see somebody different in her role. So I think it is a challenge for her to be new in town, because she doesn't want people, and she sort of battles with that in some of the earlier pages of the book, like when she's going head to head with the detective and saying that, well, everybody's going to have my back, like nobody will believe that I did this. But then internally she's saying like, well, wait a minute, I hope that that's the case. I hope that people come, stay on my side. And so she sort of wrestles with that. I think what she does have going for her is the friendships that she's made thus far. And she's just sort of that kind of effusive of a person that people are drawn to her. People really like her initially. So she has the support of not only her co-workers, but some of the Friends of the Library nonprofit members. And I think as a librarian, even though she's new to the community, she's already embedded in the community, because people come to the library and they've seen her for the past 4 months with the programming that she's been running and that sort of thing. So I think there are challenges to being new, but while she's new, she's also quickly become a valuable member of the community.
That definitely, I think, as I was reading, thinking like, wow, like she's made like so many great friendships in such a short amount of time. It's like I've lived in the same place for like 5 years. I can't even say that. And so I think that really speaks to her character, and the fact that like there are so many people that are willing to go to bat for her, which I think is really special. How about, so we've talked about the library kind of being the center of Greta's world, and also like where she's able to do a lot of her sleuthing. But I'm wondering if you would like to share some of the other really cozy locations that make up Larkspur, and kind of entice our audience with what other areas that they can look forward to exploring.
I love this question. I'm glad you thought to ask it, because I didn't even think to bring this up. But there are so many fun places in Larkspur, and more that I can't wait to write into future stories. But the first one that comes to mind is the Little Towns Cafe. It's called Mugs and Hugs, which I think is the perfect name for a cozy mystery cafe. And I have to give a shout out to my cousin who actually named the cafe, because initially it was just called Allison's Cafe. And I'm like, I feel like I'm missing an opportunity here. Like this has to be a standout name. So I got on my family group text and he came up with the name Mugs and Hugs for me, which I love. So Mugs and Hugs is just this adorable cafe. It's actually like kitty corner across the street from the library. So Greta can go there every morning to get her cup of coffee and a side of the local gossip. And it's just a cool, airy, it's got yellow painted walls and white beadboard, and there's an indoor-outdoor seating situation going on. So it's a really cool place in Larkspur, and anybody passes through those doors. So Allison, the owner, becomes a great resource for Greta in her sleuthing efforts. And the other place that comes to mind is a resort on the far side of the lake. It's called Kennedy's Cozy Cottages. And this is the place that I based off of the resort that my family visited growing up. So there are these log cabins situated kind of like nestled in the woods, some along the water. And just a place where people can come to stay, to vacation, to take work hiatuses, to do like winter sports in the winter and summer vacationing in the summer. So those are the two places that come to mind, as well as just the general lakeside setting and the fact that Greta is living in a log cabin and getting to do different water sports. She's sort of at the end. This is an autumn-based book, so it's the fall season. So she's at the end of her summer water sports season, but it's one of her favorite hobbies.
The cozy cabins, I love. While Greta was visiting, it's like I feel like this would also be a really good place for a murder. So I'm very curious, without like giving away too much. And as our viewers, for those of you who want to enter the giveaway for a copy of Death Checked Out, make sure you put in the chat River Heights. We'll be doing the drawing momentarily, so just last call for everybody there. But I'm wondering if, without like giving away too much of book one, if you can kind of tease us a little bit about what's next for Greta, as book two and book three kind of are in the works.
Yes, they are in the works, and I'm excited to revisit them. I probably would have a better answer for you if I had revisited them more recently than I have. But the plan for book two is to center around the fall festival that's happening in Larkspur. So if you read Death Checked Out, this is hinted at in a couple of places. Greta's meeting with the mayor to talk about the fall festival, and it's sort of like this big outing that happens in northern Wisconsin when people are up north to see the changing colors, and it's a really cool time. So there's going to be like a library book sale. There'll be Greta's parents will come back into play because they'll be visiting to take in these events. And Kennedy's Cozy Cottages will also play a pretty significant role in the second book. There's a visiting journalist that's going to come into play because he'll be doing a sort of spotlight feature on the town, which the mayor is super excited about. And I'm really just excited to continue to explore kind of the interplay and the relationship between Greta and the detective, which was fun to start kind of prodding in the first book. So that's where we're headed in book two, and I can't wait. I'm so excited to get back to Larkspur.
That's exciting, and that's very exciting.
So I tell you what, yeah, that's so cool. And it's great to know that we can look forward to two more books and two more visits to Larkspur. Real quick, like Sarah said, our time is unfortunately limited. So where can folks find you, like on the interwebs, all that kind of stuff, so they can kind of keep up to date on Greta's ongoings? Oh,
awesome. Thanks for asking. So my website is leahdobrinska.com. You can sign up for my newsletter there at leahdobrinska.com/newsletter. That is my favorite thing on the internet. I love my newsletter community. I send once monthly emails, and I love just emailing back and forth with readers. So I always include writing updates, my favorite books of the month, and just other monthly favorites in that newsletter. So that's the best place to find me. Otherwise, on social media, I am primarily on Instagram, and my handle is @whatleahwrote. And you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/whatleahwrote.
Leah has the best reels. So
Sarah, you're too kind.
If you're on Instagram, I highly recommend you follow Leah's account, because hers just like, they always just make filled me with such warm fuzzies. I absolutely love it.
Oh, good. Thank
Um,
you.
awesome. So, yes, please make sure to check out Leah's website. I believe we have those in the show notes, so you can click on from there to sign up for her fabulous newsletter. So, our moment is nearly up, but we would like to very much thank Leah for spending time with us here today. If you
Thank you,
guys have
Leah.
enjoyed our conversation, Leah is actually going to be back on the Bookish Hour when we return in 2023, which is only a couple weeks away. Scary, I know. Leah will be visiting us in February, and we'll talk more things Greta as well as her Mapleton romances. But for now, let me just do our friendly little random number generator here for our giveaway winner. If you could please send an email to giveaways@thebookishhour.com with your mailing address. Our winner today is going to be, and forgive me if I pronounce name wrong, Lena Raleen. Congratulations, Lena. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if you could email us, we'll make sure to get your address on over to Leah for your copy of Death Checked Out. Congratulations, yes. And thank you, everybody who stopped in here live to join us for our bookish moment that we had today with Leah Dobrinska.
Yes.
Glad that hopefully we could bring some cheer to your Tuesday afternoon. Leah, again, thank you for sharing your time with us, and we look forward to having you back on the Bookish Hour. So thanks again for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
And everybody else, for those of you who are either joining us live or if you're watching this post stream, make sure to subscribe to our channel, or if you go to thebookishhour.com, you can sign up for notifications for when we have new episodes airing. We do have one coming this Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard. We'll be joined with Michelle Cox, and she is generously giving away a 6-book series set. So it'll be a good one, just in time for the holidays. Yeah. So thanks again, everybody, for having a moment with us, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.